Hey up everybody, welcome back to the Audi Cycling YouTube channel, where today I am going to be previewing the Itzulia Basque Country. It was a really exciting race last year, won by Primoz Roglic, and we also saw Jonas Vingegaard making a really good appearance last year. So what we're going to see this year, well, stage 1 starts us off with a prologue, and it's not very long, 7.5 kilometers, and it's incredibly difficult, so I think that this profile shows it best. You've got some steep pitches towards the start and also towards the end, so kind of 3 uncategorised climbs. Likely the best time trialists who are going to be performing well in this will be Primoz Roglic, Remco Evenepoel, Jonas Vingegaard if he can find that time trialling ability from last year, maybe Dani Martinez. But you also see some good performances sometimes from Adam Yates, Sergio Higuita. And I think that likely you'll see those guys being the ones up there. David Gaudu, maybe we did see a good one at the Volta Algarve from him, so definitely watch out for him. But in reality, I do think that it'll be a Remco Evenepoel versus Primoz Roglic kind of affair. I mean, it really suits both of them. You could say maybe it suits Roglic a bit more. Evenepoel might be favoured perhaps more if it's flatter, just because he's got a really low CDA. But for me, I do think that Evenepoel will win this stage, just because I think that he's quite determined to really put that Tirreno Adriatico behind him, where he didn't do too well, and he was only really beaten by Ganna in that TT, and if Ganna was starting this TT, I'd probably put him as the favourite, so I'm going to go with Evenepoel to win the prologue kind of stage 1. But let's technically move on to what is stage 1, and actually probably the easiest stage of the whole Itzulia, and that is just a testament to how hard this race is going to be. But you do have quite a significant flat section throughout this middle part, a couple of intermediate sprints and stuff. Then you've got a 12.6 kilometre 3% climb, not overly difficult, and then you get towards the finish where you have a lot of uncategorised climbs, really suiting some long range attacks. But for me, although there will be long range attacks, I'm absolutely certain of it, I do think this will come back to a sprint, just because you do have, this is probably going to be the stage which has the highest likelihood of being a sprint, and I think that some teams will be earmarking this as the sprint and probably their best opportunity of winning throughout the whole week. So I will be favouring a sprint in this scenario. There are not a lot of fast riders here. Arguably your faster ones are Julian Alaphilippe. You've also got Andrea van der Lam, who's just finished 5th place at the Gran Premio Miguel Indurain, so he is looking pretty fast at the moment. Sergio Higuita is looking pretty fast, but also got beaten by Carapaz, weirdly enough, at Catalonia, so who knows actually how fast he is. But Simon Clark is looking fairly fast at the moment as well, and you also have a slight sprint in the form of Olois Alois, who rides for Caio Rural, a bit of an unknown rider there, but he is pretty fast, and I do have just an inkling that it will come down to a sprint. You also have Covey, he's pretty fast in the sprint as well. For me, I think that Van der Lam will win this stage. Stage 2, this is going to mess me up kind of being one behind, but you've got arguably a harder course than the day before. You've got a loop around Ozeka with some really difficult climbs, 3.6 kilometres at 7.4%. And I think that this one towards the finish line, which is 5 kilometres to go or so, that's quite steep and favours probably the long range attack a bit more, just because it's a bit of a steeper and more aggressive launch pad to then go into just a descent, and the descent will favour once again the attack, just because it's quite hard for a peloton to gain time on an attacker on a descent, because they're both going at roughly a similar speed. If it was flatter, it would definitely favour the peloton. You've got a lot of guys who could attack long here. I would say it would be Evenepoel, but I do think he'll be in the leader's jersey at this point. Soler we saw attacking a lot during Tirreno Adriatico. I know that was almost to set up Pogacar for the intermediate sprints, but I do think that Soler is looking quite sprightly at the moment. You also have some other long range attackers, maybe Leonard Kemner. We saw him doing a breakaway victory at the Ruta del Sol on stage 5, so he is certainly known to a long range attack. And you've just got so many riders who could do that. You could maybe say like Pierre Latour, he could be one, especially since he looked good at that Indurain race just today as well. Other than that, you might have Maxime Van Hills, for example, or maybe someone from AG2R like Aurélien Palis-Pentler. Maybe you'll have somebody from Bahrain like Bilbao, who we saw descending really well at the Tour of the Alps. Maybe you'll see an opportunistic move from a GC rider like Roglic, or Alaphilippe's really known to descend really fast as well. For me, despite Alaphilippe's incredible descending ability, I do think that without a clear GC leader and without a clear sprinter perhaps, I think an attack will come from UAE in the shape of Marc Soler, and that will be the rider who is going to win stage 2 of the Itzulia Basque Country. Stage 3, you just kind of drop off a cliff towards the start by the looks of things, and then you have multiple climbs, the Vivero, the Jata, etc. Then you go back to the Vivero climb, and that is 6 kilometers at 6.3% on average, but the start of it is steeper than that. I think it's something like 2 kilometers at 10% to start it off with. That makes it quite interesting because this climb will likely just get rid of a lot of the domestiques to start with because of how steep it is at the start, and then you have this descent and then a flat bit, and this is an incredibly dangerous flat bit because without the domestiques to hold it together, it's very easy for some GC guys to clip off into a move and gain time on GC, and this is exactly what I see happening. With less domestiques, you might see a reliance on certain teams with more riders like Jumbo-Visma and Ineos Grenadiers to control it, but if they get riders into a move, all of a sudden you've got so many riders blocking behind and marking moves, then it makes a move going up the road even more successful. So here's what I think is going to happen. I think that Jumbo are going to go quite aggressive on this with everybody looking at Roglic. I think that they'll attack with Jonas Vingegaard, and then he will be joined likely by somebody like Remco Evenepoel or maybe Julian Alaphilippe, and maybe even somebody from Bora like Vlasov, Kemna, Higita, Buchmann, something like that. And so it won't be many riders who get up the road, but I think that a move will go, everybody else behind will look at each other, and then you'll see a gap of maybe 20-30 seconds on GC, something like that. I do think that it will be Leonard Kemna who will win stage 3 of the Itzulia Basque Country, likely working with somebody like Jonas and Evenepoel, but then attacking solo over the top of them. And of course he might not be a GC threat because he's lost time on previous stages, and then they let him get the stage win, and then the other two kind of get time on GC. I think that makes logical sense that that's the way it would play out. Stage 5 is, well, technically the only pure kind of summit finish, I guess, if you will. It's an incredibly difficult finish. I believe it goes up to like 16%, averages 10% for like a kilometre and a half. So it's going to be really difficult. The best climbers, so you got Roglic, of course, Jonas Vingegaard, Bilbao, Ineos Grenadiers just in general, because they've got a gazillion leaders in this race apparently. You got Danny Martinez, Adam Yates, Carlos Rodriguez. You got Bentola who looked good at the Coppa e Bartali, so he's looking in really good form as well. Then you've also got all the riders from Bora like Higita and Vlasov and Buchmann, and then you've got David Gaudu who may or may not be taking part in this race, and Remco Evenepoel, Julian Alaphilippe, any one of the riders from UAE because they can't seem to decide on a leader. So you've got all these climbers who could really win this stage, but really the best climber on this star list is Primoz Roglic, so really he is probably going to win this stage. And then stage, stage 5, this is the last stage. This is where we saw last year Brandon McNulty really capitulating. Tadej Pogacar was brought back to try and help him out, and then all of a sudden he had to leave him, and it was all just chaos. Perfect masterclass from Jumbo-Visma. So I expect to see something pretty similar from Jumbo-Visma, likely with Roglic and Vingegaard high up on GC. They'll just have those two alternating following the moves, but Jumbo-Visma have a really strong team here. They've got Chris Harper, Sepp Kuss, and also Milan Vader. Those guys are not slouches when it comes to the climbs. They will be able to control this race, but they won't be able to control it all the way. I do expect it to really kick off on this climb. The Krabeline, 4 kilometers at 10%. This is a serious climb, and I also expect this to be probably where Remco Evenepoel drops out at GC or starts to suffer. And then you'll see maybe a counter attack on this climb, and then that will be kind of form a group, and then they'll go and contest a finish. Very similar to what we saw last year, where we saw Hugh Carthy, Roglic, and Gaudu going up the road. For me, the riders that have to go up the road are Ineos Grenadiers. You've got so many leaders there, but I do suspect them to be of a back foot because they don't really have a rider to contest in the prologue, so therefore they really need to try and play an aggressive game here. I think that likely their strongest rider is Danny Martinez. He was really up there in Paris-Nice and only dropped out of that last stage because of a mechanical problem, so his legs are incredibly good, and this is a parkour that suits him a lot. If he got into a move with Roglic, Vingegaard, and maybe one or two other riders from other teams who are willing to work, maybe somebody from Bora, a UAE rider, Pello Bilbao from Bahrain, that's going to be a move that's going to stick away and likely stay clear quite easily. You could see a scenario like last year where they kind of gift the rider where a guy on GC gives a rider the stage win who perhaps is a little bit further down on GC. That could definitely be something that we see working out. Just because of how he looked at Paris-Nice, I think that Dani Martinez will win this stage. It's possible that Roglic is behind. Martinez is probably one of the top 3, if not top 5 climbers in this race. I think it's very possible that Martinez wins this race. Maybe he's had a bit of bad luck and he's a little bit further back on GC, so I'm going to go with Dani Martinez to win this stage. And then that's going to bring me on to the final GC podium for this race. So my podium prediction for this race is that Jonas Vingegaard will win Itzulia Basque Country. I'll go with Dani Martinez to finish in 2nd place after a very good last stage performance. And I'll go with Primoz Roglic to finish in 3rd place. I think it's very possible that Vingegaard and Roglic could switch around, but that's going to be my podium prediction for this race. So let me know in the comments down below what you think of the predictions that I've made, and put all of your predictions down in the comments below. And all that is left to say is to keep safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video. Salut!